city. It says it was given to the city of Salem.
Ah,
So it should be part of
yeah.
the city's collection.
I can go, if I go over after lunch, I'll take some pictures.
Okay, that sounds good.
What is the resource that you're looking at again? I've never.
It's the library's historic photo collection.
It's pretty interesting to browse through.
If you just Google though the title of the piece, Guidance of Youth, it brings up a bunch of images. When you see it, you'll recognize it.
Okay. All right. Well, I am going to call the meeting of the Salem Public Art Commission to order. It's 9:41, and today is Wednesday, April 14th, 2021. So I'll start with introductions. I'm Chris Darcy, Chair of the Commission.
Eileen Cotter-Howell, Commissioner.
Oh, Rachel Bucci, Commissioner.
Spencer Emmerich, Commissioner.
And Heather Dimke with Public Works.
Great. The next thing on the agenda is public comment. Did anyone submit any public comment, Heather?
No public comment.
Okay, let's move on to approval of the consent agenda.
Yeah, before we approve this consent agenda, I'd like to make a couple of small changes to item number 7, the mural discussion. Only to make it a little bit more clear what the objection was to the current way of doing the murals. And Heather, it would be on the second line, it says there is presently an allowance for murals if they are approved. I'd like to see that changed to accepted into the collection, which is actually the problem. And then on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, on the fourth line, add, let's see, it says pursuing a separate approval process for murals. Could you add that does not require acceptance into the collection? Because it's a very specific thing we're looking for. It's a different venue, a different path for people. And the last change is instead of Portland's Title V permit program, it's actually Title IV.
Oh, I'm sorry. I knew that.
Okay, other than that, I propose that we approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, the motion carries. Discussion items. I asked that the Salem Vision process be put on the agenda because I have kind of been watching the process, and you know that Eunice Kim has attended at least one of our meetings, and some of us have interacted with the community visioning process. When I saw the draft report, I was a little troubled that art and culture did not have a stronger voice in the overall document. And I read through it just once, but I know that there are several mentions, both on page 52 and page 60. But I know that the city is collecting further input to the process, and I wanted to suggest that we determine which one. There's a series of community meetings. There is one today, and they're scheduled both midday and in the evening. But I know that there are several mentions. Both are you getting an echo on my sound?
I forgot to X out of our YouTube.
Oh, okay.
Apologies. Okay.
No problem.
I thought there was someone else on the meeting who was repeating everything you were saying, Chris.
So did I. Anyway, the city has begun a series of conversations to determine if the things are left out or whether things need to be elaborated on in this vision plan. And I'm I would like to suggest that if you have not taken a look at that planning document, that you do. I mean, there's a lot to wade through, but it seems to me that there is opportunity to place a stronger, at least, voice for what art and culture contribute to a community. And I feel that that voice is pretty mute in the existing plan. So Heather, I meant to email you before this meeting, but I did review the subject matter that will be discussed at the various meetings. So there's transportation, there's equity, today is economic development. I mean, the art could be part of that, but I'm trying to figure out which one to go to or listen into or send an email to. And maybe you could help me figure that out.
Yeah.
But I do think that there really isn't any other body that's connected to government that kind of has the pathway from the work that we do to this kind of a planning document. And I suggest that we each review the plan, and then if we collectively want to say something or individually want to say something, that now is the time to weigh in, because the city's asked for comments. So that's what I wanted to just put on the record for this morning's meeting.
Which might have more weight, Chris, as a group or individually?
I think both are important. You know, we each bring different things to the table. You know, a personal interest in, public art, or I'm an architect and I believe that the built environment should be well designed, or, I have children and, it's important for us to see art in community settings, or, we've got interesting opportunities for parks, and I just don't see, I don't see much of that in this document. I'm just suggesting that now's the time to speak up. The city, I know, the city council did approve the basic tenets, which are pretty broad, nothing surprising. So they're in a more of a refinement mode than we're starting from scratch, because obviously this is a multi-year planning process.
Is this the one that's having weekly meetings on Wednesdays?
Yeah, through May, it looks like.
I know we just had Salem AI chapter just had a meeting yesterday talking about getting more involved in that.
Oh, good.
Because there hasn't been any architect involvement in the discussion of those. So I know that both sides are wanting to get involved, and it sounds like that we need to get involved as well.
Yeah, I attended my neighborhood association meeting when Eunice came and presented about the plan, and the conversation in that environment was a lot more about transportation than anything else. And it could be because some of the folks on the SCAN board that's kind of been their work over the years. Like somebody worked for ODOT and somebody's interested in bike transit, that kind of thing. So, I suggest that maybe everybody take a look at the plan. I can tell you that I noted that page 52 has one mention and page 60 has another one, but this is a long thing and you can skim through a lot of it. And then maybe we have a little subcommittee meeting, or we figure out which one of these meetings would be best to go to. I mean, I could try going to the economic development one. But there's a SCAN meeting. My neighborhood association meets tonight, so I'm going to go to that because the school board candidates are all going to be there.
I did reach out to Eunice after you asked that we add this to the agenda, and got a little bit more information from her as well. I think you're right, there's not much mention, hardly at all, of art. But she pointed out a couple different, they're basically policy statements that they're developing now that would kind of help to feed the goals that they've established in this initial vision document that, as you mentioned, it was just approved. So there was a couple different statements. One was under the broad goal of community and public facilities and services, it's called. And it's a simple statement. Locally created public art should be allowed and encouraged more broadly in Salem neighborhoods, is what that statement reads.
That's the one on page 60.
Okay. So
That to me does not speak to a vision.
No.
I mean, I
agree. So that particular meeting is May 12th.
oh, okay.
And I know that they do have 2 different time slots listed. There's one right in the middle of the day, the lunch hour, and then there's an evening option for each Wednesday for these. The other statement that she sent my way was one, apparently they're looking at what other cities have in their documents as well.
Mhm.
So there's one that it looked like it was from, I think it was San Diego, and it was under their Parks and Recreation as potential policy statements. For incorporation of art, the statement reads, coordinate with the Salem Public Art Commission was inserted during the pre-design and design phases for new and renovated parks. So that's not in their vision statement or in their draft policies yet. That's one that they're looking at. But the Parks and Recreation discussion is on April 28th. And I'll just add, it is a lot. It's a lot to sort through. As Chris mentioned, she has pretty much everything up to date on her website. So if you go to her web, and I'm happy, I can send this out to the group after the meeting.
Okay.
Or you can search our vision on the website, but it's got the new document that was just approved. It's got more summary of the process. I can send you, I didn't find these on the website, but the draft policy statements and the ones that they're looking at from other cities, I can send those as well. But it sounds like feedback in these meetings, that would be a great opportunity. They also have a poll online that goes through and asks first that you've kind of at least reviewed quickly the draft policy statements and then go through the survey. I've not been through it yet, but that's another opportunity. And then it sounds like they're working on an interactive map that's not quite finished yet, but hopefully by this month, and that's going to focus more on kind of zoning and that level of detail. So really, it's probably these meetings and that survey if folks are available to do that.
Great.
So I will send that out.
Great. Thank you, Heather. And thanks for talking to Eunice.
Appreciate you bringing it up today. I stepped away and wasn't up to speed on that. So it was good to have that discussion and regroup.
I'm a recovering cultural policy nerd. Okay, let's move on to Percent for Art project updates. And first up is the library.
Okay, I've got a quick summary. So we have a selection committee meeting has been scheduled again for this coming Thursday. And that's most of the entire group. I think engineering, Aaron's not going to be able to make it, but everybody else will meet once again with Amanda to just check in. And, the group had collectively asked for additional color to be added into the design concept before she moved forward. So we're going to check in and see where she's at with that. I believe she's also meeting on site or already did once again with Aaron last week, it sounds like.
Oh, great.
I let Spencer know that I had a chance to do a walkthrough of the library that last week in March. I'd been through quickly before that to take some photos, but having the tour was really helpful. It's amazing how the space has changed, quite honestly. It looks great. It's exciting to see. Very open, obviously, a lot of sunlight pouring in those huge windows in that main level. There is a lot of white. All of the shelving is going to be white, and the carpeting varies on the level and somewhat subtly by what area you're in. But it's pretty muted as well. And I sent samples out to, I think you were included, Chris. We've finally got some color samples from Hacker, and I think that included the furnishings and the carpet. It's very classy looking. I think it's exciting to see it all come together.
Yeah, I drove by yesterday, and the windows that overlook commercial they're just transformational for the space. Is the carpet installed?
It is. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Because when we went through with Amanda, they were painting, but there was still a lot of a lot of construction material in that space.
Yeah, there still was a lot sitting around, but they had the carpet down. The walls looked like they were mostly painted, and they're mostly a real crisp white, which looked great too. So no real plans yet for the opening. They're still hoping for end of July, August sometime to have that open to the public, but given the uncertainties with COVID still, they haven't made any plans just yet. They're hoping to start moving folks in, books, furniture, all of that in June. So that's kind of the update on timeline. I know, Rachel, you had mentioned you had an idea of maybe sharing some more of Amanda's work, if that's an opportunity once the space opens again. That was shared with the librarian, and I know Kate was included from Foundation. So nobody had any concerns that were raised about that thought, if we wanted to check in with Amanda about that.
I think it would also be good to have Amanda interviewed by CCTV so that we could have a video that could either be playing, on demand in the library or available to be streamed from our website or the libraries. But I found Wendy to be she was a good interviewer, and she's super supportive. I also think it would be good. She would probably be delighted to do an interview with Eileen and Rachel and Paula about the collection and reinstalling it, and the kinds of work that's there and how the works have been acquired over the years. She's super friendly, and she's very pro art, and she's a good interview. She's a pro, so she was very positive and was very well prepared with questions, and I had a good experience. And it's free.
Yeah.
Because and it's CC Media now. Sorry about
CC Media, right.
correct myself. Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation with Amanda tomorrow. Eileen and Rachel, do you want to talk about the reinstall of the collection, kind of where you are in that process, and maybe anything about the labels? I saw a social media post from Eric West asking for if the public knew any of the several artists, and I didn't know the names at all. So
as far as the installation of the artwork, that was why Laura gave us the color swatches, that we were waiting on that. And now that we have that, it makes it a little bit easier. The holdup at the moment is that Amanda's piece is central to the layout of everybody else's because it's so dominant. And so once you're meeting tomorrow, if we could have a stronger sense of what her piece is like, that would be very, very helpful. So the moment that becomes more clear, we've got a couple of different options of ways to go with the layout of the rest of that floor.
Okay.
And then Betty Leduc's piece is anchoring the bottom floor. And so it won't be hard once we have some clarity on a couple of these issues. It won't be hard to finish up.
Excellent.
The top floor, the children's area and the teen area. The children's area librarian asked for some of the walls not to be used. And I still am not 100% clear which walls those are, but I'm fairly sure. So we have less space up there. None of these are big problems. So I think we're on pretty good track. Paula I talked with Paula yesterday actually, and she would like also to be involved in helping situate birds. Okay. I know it would need to have the engineers will be the ones, of course, taking care of all the safety issues, but it also would need to have somebody from SPAC or Silas Cook there to help situate it properly, artistically.
That sounds great.
And
Have you done anything, have you moved at all on the moving the Setzel over from the law library?
No, I have not. I've not reached back out still to the library. And we were waiting on some other options. I think right now that's the last piece for the moment that we were waiting from hackers. They initially had that against the wall there on that second level.
Right.
And she seemed to understand that that really was not an option for that piece. But I've not seen any, and I know you had a couple of options that we discussed in the subcommittee meeting. I shared those. But I've not received any information back from her on that. So
Okay, that's good. We're moving ahead under the assumption that that wall is not going to be used for the Setzel piece.
okay, I'll reach back out. And then in terms of the birds or the birds, right?
Birds.
We did, I think it was shared with just a few of you, KPF Structural Engineers, who I guess is working with Howard Wright. They provided a proposal to do a design, an engineered design for birds so that it would meet the updated seismic standards and building code. So they provided that proposal was $1,000 to do just that. And that's not hanging the piece. That's just to get it reinstalled appropriately this time, or a little bit more safely, I should say. So I've not heard back from him. That's been about 3 weeks. So I need to check in, but hopefully they're working on that. And then I did hear from Aaron. I know Silas Cook might be an option for actual install. Howard Wright might also be able to install birds, depending on what that final design from KPF looks like as well. So
I think it's probably best for the community if the engineers and either Silas or Paula work together on that, because the artists will be more concerned with the artistic look of it and how it relates to the rest of the room, whereas the engineers will be all about how to do it safely, how to attach it safely.
thank you. I can share. We'll see what the design shows. If Howard is an option, I would assert that they need to work with someone from the commission or Silas. So hopefully that would maybe work as well. I assume they're going to have the equipment and whatnot to get it up there. Is what I'm thinking.
And has a site been identified for birds?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Where is that? What is the site? Wasn't in on that.
There was, yes, we discussed that during the subcommittee meeting, which was our last scheduled monthly in March. So there was a couple options that Aaron had provided from engineering. Really, there was 2 options. One was kind of in that main, I want to call it, it's not the plaza area, but where Amanda's piece is going to go, in that big open room, kind of close to the windows. There was some concern that not only would the piece conflict possibly with Amanda's piece, it would just be kind of busy, and I think maybe she's not a real fan of the piece either, is what I've heard. So the second location was over towards the interior entrance to Laux, where the fiction area is. That's a double high ceiling as well, all along that edge actually is. And so that corner, the south corner, was what folks landed on of those 2 options.
Okay. That sounds better to me than the main room.
Good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go back. If there's no further update on the collection being reinstalled at the library, I skipped the convention center.
Oh, excuse me, just a second, Chris. I do have one question. We as a group, as SPAC as a group, had pretty much decided that we would not dip into the artwork that is in the mayor's office. Mm-hmm. However, the Carl Hall piece, Totem Gesture, mm-hmm. is one of the ones that we are pretty strongly considering as a good counterbalance to Amanda Wojcik's piece as we know it. It may work that it's not going to be a good match, but it has a lot of color, and it has color that works with the library's new design. And it has it has similar content to what Amanda has been aiming with her abstract piece. Anyway, I would like to raise it as a possibility that we could approach the mayor and ask. There are several other paintings that I think would also work, given what his tastes are. And so I guess I just would like permission to go ahead and think in these terms and hope that we could work something out.
I can
How
certainly,
much longer will the mayor be mayor?
he was just reelected, so I think we've got a couple years.
Okay. I think that if we could offer him a swap, that would be the best approach.
Yeah.
He
That's
is-
kind of what I was thinking
he
too.
was the mayor who asked for a specific artist's work, and he knew he was going to get a good piece. So I think that's a plus in the mayor's column for me. But I do think the library is such an amazing opportunity, kind of a once in a lifetime kind of thing, that he may be amenable. But I think it would be good for us to have a couple of options for him to choose from.
Yeah, that we've already been thinking along those lines. And so, yes, we do have some options lined up that he might be able to swap out.
Okay. All right. I have no objection.
Okay, that makes it a lot easier. Thank you.
Eileen, where are we with the label?
Oh, the labels. I've basically, we are reworking the labels because last time that they were done with intent was when Jonathan redid the library. And since that time, there have been changes in life facts.
Yep.
And also since that time, artwork that's been added doesn't have that same level of attention. So there really is a lot. And finally, I just decided I'm just looking at every single label.
Yeah.
So we are now, I've written 42 of them.
Okay.
And we have around 80. That's how many pieces we're considering. And the artists themselves, there's probably about another 12 artists that I still have worked. So some of the artists have multiple pieces in the library.
Mhm.
So that makes a huge difference. So I think that we will probably be finished to send it to you and Paula for final proofing I'm still hoping that we will get it all done by the end of this month.
Okay.
And then maybe a week or two to look at finally over. Right now I'm working with Eric and Gretchen, who are on the foundation board.
Okay.
And I'm giving them different artists to research for me so that
Okay.
it takes a lot of that time away. And it's been very, very, very nice working with them.
And so are we still we'll be able to have them printed through the company that's doing?
Your felt hat.
Yeah, is that what
Yeah.
it's called?
I'm counting on that.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rachel too, as I have had a lot of conversations with Kate, and I did not bring up the corridor. And so I'm really glad that you did, Heather, mostly because I was waiting to see how it all fell out.
Mhm.
I have another question for the library. Back when this process for the library artwork started, I think it was Kate who mentioned that the foundation was acquiring a work by Nancy Lindbergh.
Yes, and they'd have.
Oh, and they have. Okay, great.
Mhm.
So that's part of
Yeah.
your.
It's a piece, it's 30 by 30. It's called Still Life in Flux.
Okay.
And so, yes, now it's part of their collection.
Okay, got it. I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's a nice, it's a very nice piece. Works
Nice.
very well with Louis Bunce's piece.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah,
Oh, nice.
that's one of the combinations we're considering for the main room.
Okay.
So just for clarity for me, you mentioned about 80 pieces. That includes the foundation then collection.
Yes, it's a foundation and specs, and also moving into works that are in the mayor's office and in chambers. So it's not necessarily going to be all of that is going to go back in, although the library definitely can hold 80. That's not a major issue. But some pieces won't necessarily work because they're maybe outdated or something like that. And we will eventually, I think, as a group, have to talk a little bit more about that, because there are, one of the things that I'm finding as we're researching is that we have a lot in our collections, both the foundation and the city, that are valuable not just in monetary terms, but also cultural terms. And we have also, what's very obvious, we have large gaps in representation of the community.
Yeah.
Actually, I was thinking about that this morning, and wondering if this time would present an opportunity to perhaps fill a few of those gaps and incorporate some new work. I mean, we do have some funds available. I feel like there's a whole swath of a generation that's missing from the library collection. Even if you just look at it, you know, generationally, there is a whole generation that's not represented. But then there are also a lot of other holes there.
Yeah.
So who would be some of those holes? Just as an example.
Well, we've had a lot of deaths in the community, art community, over the last year or two. And right off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Dan May, Carrie Melton.
Yeah.
There are others too. And those are some of the artists I know, but also I'm not seeing a lot of works from artists who could be in the collection, who are Northwest artists of color. And I think it's time that we start talking about that and including that, so that our community is more represented in the artwork that we're collecting.
Yeah, I agree.
It may be time, maybe this is for another time, but I think we're actually going to have to really devote some pretty concentrated time to talk about that and figure a path forward. Like Rachel says, we do have some money now and we could do it that way. It's just, I want to be very conscious about how we're doing it rather than doing it piecemeal. So not tying it to the opening of the library, but perhaps being SPAC's gift to the library, say within the next year, that we do that.
And I think some of that kind of conversation goes back to the earlier conversation we had about the Salem visioning process, you know, articulating some of those thoughts and then getting them into a vision for the broader community.
Yeah. The other thing that I have noticed, and it's very, very strong, and I think it's something that we need to prioritize. It is almost impossible sometimes to figure out how a piece got into the collection. And it's sometimes it's difficult to see whether the piece belongs to SPAC or the foundation. So there's even that level of questioning. So I do think that, first of all, we need to have some kind of documentation when a piece is actually accepted into the collection so that we can point to it and say, here it is. And then we won't have an issue like we did with the Mattingly mural, where we were operating under the assumption that it was part of the collection, only to find out after putting a ton of effort into that mural on the part of the city of Salem, to find out it's not part of the collection.
Yeah.
But I think that we would find that a good half of the work has questionable validity as far as being part of the collection.
Wow.
And that's not a good position to be in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, these kinds of projects often turn up these kinds of questions, but I do think, again, maybe in the next few months, figuring out what data system is best for our collection management, and then getting everything that we know entered, and then continuing to work on the research, like the Wayne Taysom panels on the doors. That remains, a mystery until we can get into the archives for the architecture firm that are at Willamette Heritage. So, yeah, but getting at least the framework for the information established so that we can just plug everything in and then keep finding the answers.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
oh, I was just going to mention that when we last talked, one of the locations that the architects had suggested for the, I think it was the Setzel screen, was in the entry to the auditorium, where there's that curved wall, and I think we all, decided that was not an appropriate spot for that. But it got me thinking about that curved wall and how it's really difficult to hang art on a curved surface, but it could be a place for a mural of some sort and to activate that visually. And if we're thinking about inclusion and representation, perhaps that space could present an opportunity for something like that involves the community and art. I don't know. I'm just kind of brainstorming here. And
I think that's
curious
a great
what you guys
thought.
think.
That's a nice way of dealing with that. You can install smaller pieces on a curved wall without much trouble, but I like the idea of a kind of a mural as a permanent thing.
Yeah,
I also recognize that there's a difference between our perception of the value of art and perhaps the library's perception of that, which is a problem sometimes. But I do believe that that's part of our job as SPAC members, is to help educate why this is of value.
On that note, I will share, there was a couple emails. The librarian had just shared information about our new artwork, hopeful artwork from Betty Leduc with her staff. One gal in particular, librarian Ashley, she was very excited about the piece, and she had a lot of great ideas. She was excited about the collection that's returning as well. Really excited, and she mirrored some of the ideas that this group has brought forth about, having some more information specifically about what pieces are in the library once it reopens, having, maybe some kind of activities related to it. She brought up our scavenger hunt, brochures, or just a tour that folks could go on their own. She really was excited, and she had great opportunities. So I wanted to share that with the group.
What is her name? Ashley?
Ashley, first name, I don't recall her last name.
And is she a librarian?
She is. Let me see. I think I have her email. Ashley Folgate.
Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know what her position is there?
I don't.
Okay.
That's great.
That's nice to hear that.
Can I leave the library and go back to the convention center just quickly so we make sure we cover that? I was at the an Oregon Artist Series Foundation meeting. I'm just going to confirm that the two paintings are at the convention center. The convention center can only open, I think, at 25% capacity, so they are kind of barely renting space, they barely have groups coming in to use the building. There is some kind of an emergency, like a FEMA-like agency that rented the ground floor on a kind of square foot basis, and they've just got a lot of workers in there with laptops. There's no food service in the building yet. So, but OASF has gone in and is looking at the collection that's there, both the pieces at the convention center and the pieces on loan from Willamette, to see what might be rearranged to make room for the two large paintings that are coming in. And there's no final word on that yet. Jonathan came over. I was part of a walkthrough with Jonathan Bucci from the Hallie Ford to look at the pieces that are on loan and maybe have the Hallie Ford suggest a couple of things that they might swap out for those. I think the pieces, personally, I think those big pieces should remain at the convention center. And so does Jonathan, but that's a conversation in progress. So there's really no news beyond that. But I wanted to make sure I got it on the record.
Thank you.
There is a very nice piece that belongs to the city, a small sculpture that's over there that now I'm forgetting the guy's name. He taught at Willamette for years.
Not
Robert Hess.
Robert Hess?
I'm sorry, say the name again.
Robert
Yes,
Hess.
it's a Robert Hess piece.
Oh,
Yeah,
Which-
it is on the exterior wall, up against the exterior wall on the commercial street side on the first floor. I don't remember
what does it look like? Has it got a
It looks-
figurative?
It looks like a very abstracted figure. So there's a
Okay.
vertical piece that goes up and down, and
Mhm.
then there's a small head-like piece, and then there's a horizontal towards the top. I don't know the title of it.
Okay.
Anyway, it is a very nice piece. I'm not suggesting that it be moved, but you go over
Oh,
there at
yeah,
different
yeah.
times of day and the lights on different things, and anyway.
Yeah, no, that's good to know that that's there, and I would assume that it's probably part of our collection.
Well, it belongs to the city of Salem, and it's an older piece, so I'm assuming that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I asked this before too, Chris, and just going to ask it again because I forgot the answer. The Thompson piece and the Bibler pieces, those are actually purchased by the for the convention center, or do we have any ownership in those pieces?
All right, there are two paths here. One is the 0.5% for art that is required by the city, generated $9,000 of the $15,000 for the Richard Thompson purchase. And that piece is owned by Urban Renewal, the Urban Renewal Agency of the city of Salem. OASF, the Oregon Artist Series Foundation, made a gift of an additional $6,000 to enable the higher level purchase to get up to $15,000 from the 9. So that Richard Thompson piece is clearly owned by the city of Salem, Urban Renewal Agency. The Robert Bibler piece was a gift. OASF bought that piece and gifted it. And here, this is a question that I have, which I meant to do it before today. I am going to ask the lawyer for OASF and the board president to determine whether, when a gift is made to the convention center, is that gift made to the convention center / City of Salem Urban Renewal Agency, or is that made to the management entity, which is a for-profit
Yeah.
that runs that And Eric Page, who's had a long association with Salem Art Association, is on the OASF board. And I will pose that question to Eric because I actually thought about it last night and then I got sidetracked.
Yeah, I'd really appreciate it if you could do that, because this is exactly the type of thing that leads to the confusion that we're finding now. It's the ownership of these things is completely opaque.
I agree. I'm sorry I didn't do it before now, but I will reach out to him today.
If we could also make it clear to all the entities that we deal with that we need to have a more transparent record of what organization owns what, that would be very, very helpful. And I know that we have an agreement with the library and an agreement with the convention center, but I mean, we've been dealing with this now for so many years, and we're not any clearer yet about the ownership of them.
Yeah, I will follow up. I wondered, and if I asked this question before, I have forgotten what the answer is. When the basalt Setzel sculpture was donated to the city, was there a donation agreement for that?
I believe so, because I do remember that would be, who was handling that? Well, Mary Lou was part of that.
Well,
and Rich Harcourt was actually the point person on that.
Right, because that piece was gifted to Oregon Artist Series Foundation, which then in turn gifted it to the city.
Yeah.
I know that I'm positive about that because we were able to secure that gift, because the Hallie Ford declined the gift at that time because they couldn't accommodate a sculpture of that type. And then Oregon Artist Series Foundation transported that piece from Sun River to Salem and had a site that was approved by the city. But there used to be almost 100% overlap between the membership of SPAC and the board of the Oregon Artist Series Foundation. So there was a lot that probably wasn't fully documented.
Yeah.
And
if that happens, it's just that people leave and then
right.
the records get lost.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
actually, that leads in that actually to find the answer for that would impact the discussion on the Betty Leduc piece later too, the donation agreement.
Right. Well, maybe we should move on to that.
Can I just have a thought to express. I think that, we have these kind of conversations frequently, and that have to do with management of the collection. And this kind of relates also to the larger vision that we talked about earlier with the city. I don't think it's unrealistic to suggest that the city deserves a part-time, at least part-time of the public art collection, because as it continues to grow, and there is a lot that needs to be done to manage the artwork, to understand where it is at any given time, the paperwork that's involved with, gifts to the collection, the conservation needs, cleaning. We can go on and on. There are a lot of details there, moving things around and tracking the location of those pieces and coordinating all of that, and the work like you're doing, Eileen, with the labels and so forth. This requires attention to detail and management, and it's all good and well when people can donate their time like you were doing, Eileen. But we aren't always going to have that at the disposal of the commission. And so in any case, I just think that how do we get that conversation going? I mean, I understand that the city has, there are fiscal concerns around that, but is it a priority? Maybe not, because it's not even showing up on their vision for the future. But these are all, if they want to build a collection and we have this 0.5% for art mandate, and it seems to me that there's a responsibility to manage the collection properly. And I know, Heather, I mean, you're wonderful with what you do, but this is only part of your job, which is far, more expansive than managing the art collection. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah,
Something to think about.
I second that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I think it's part of a longer conversation, but Eileen, when you said that there were, you're leading with the help of other volunteers, the research and the development of over 80 professional labels for a public work collection for free, that's like, whoa.
No.
Well, first of all, thank you, but it's just a lot. And then, figuring out agreements between other people within the Salem area, donors, the potential for more contributed work, the problem solving of things like the Echo Earth Ball. I mean, we're dealing with some large projects. I don't want to get into this topic today. We don't really have time.
No, I agree. I just want it on the record as something that we should be advocating for. And I think if we don't, I mean, we're kind of not doing what we're tasked with doing, which is managing the
because we're going to be gone in a couple of years. And then the next group of people that come in will have to start from scratch again to kind of get their sea legs. And there needs to be more continuity than that. And if only a part-time person is what the city can afford, that would make a huge difference to have that.
Yeah, I mean, even a contractor. I also think on the equity front, we are this commission is made up of a certain type of person at this time. And if we are serious about including people from more diverse backgrounds and experiences, this commission may not be made up of people who have the ability to spend weeks, months working on a project without compensation. And I just think, we should keep that in mind as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the commission is benefiting from the fact that I'm semi-retired.
Right.
So I would not have been able to do this 20 years ago. I just wouldn't. So.
Well, just a couple quick statements, if I can. Thank you, Rachel, first for bringing that up. I think it can only help to have that on the record, and I will, openly say it's obvious to me as I get ready for these meetings every month, and we could have more meetings, that there's a huge backlog of items that need to be done, and I'm never quite catching up. I'm never quite getting there. I will say I've just hired some staff, a staff person under me that I hope will help once we get situated. But yet there's always different items that kind of come and go and move and fill the place. So for what it's worth, I will share that up the chain and we'll just have that conversation. I have seen in other planning documents for other cities and their art commissions, they have that laid out in the planning documents that there really needs to be one full-time staff, and some I've seen. So they identify that early on. So thank you. And thank you, Eileen, for all of this incredible time that you've put in as well.
All right, let's move on to Betty Leduc. And my last conversation with Betty was very positive. We spoke by phone. I just decided I would call her. She picked up. I confirmed the location for the proposed donation on the lower level adjacent to the Peace Plaza. She was thrilled. Confirmed that the city would be responsible for the transport of the work from Ashland to Salem. And then Heather sent me a draft donation agreement, which I thought looked pretty good. Added one clause about the city being responsible for the shipping, and then it went for review to the city's legal staff. And I felt that the draft, their draft, took on quite a sterner tone and proposed some provisions that I felt were not necessary and seemed unreasonable. Heather took my comments back to them. They countered with a slightly improved agreement, but I still feel it is the tone is unnecessary. So Heather and I are going to work with the city's legal team to try to get to final resolution. Heather, I know I've agreed to meet with one of the lawyers to discuss the situation.
Mhm.
But what else did I leave out maybe that we should report?
What is their I mean, I would be helped if I understood what their primary concern is.
So what I was told is that there was research done on the additions that our attorney put in or proposed to include. And what his concerns were based on Copyright and Visual Artist Rights Act, which I'm not familiar with that, but some time had been spent looking into that. Some of the language had been copied from a museum, some museum research that had taken place. And then apparently, I don't know, what the situations were, but the city has had issues in the past with donations and artists maybe wanting to come back or there being confusion. I don't know what that is. But that was some of the extra language was just meant to be protective.
It's not unusual to have a contract that an artist has to sign that says that when you give over the piece, you are giving over the physical piece to the new owner. And so you are giving up your right to weigh in on the citing of that piece in the future. That's not unusual at all. And there's nothing too outrageous about that. What is outrageous, and I would use that word outrageous for an artist, to give up your copyright to the intellectual property you've created is not something that people do. The only museum that I've heard of that and a friend of mine had this happen, was the Whitney Museum. Now, the Whitney Museum would have a lot of reasons for doing that, but the city of Salem would not. And I can't see any reason, logical or otherwise, why the city of Salem would need to own 100% the copyright to the intellectual property. And see, there are two different entities. The physical artwork definitely is owned by the people who buy it or are donated to. But the intellectual property should always stay with the artist. And to ask the artist to give that up is a real affront.
I was able to share with Heather just this morning the deed of gift document that the Hallie Ford uses. And it does, their deed of gift does make that distinction when the donor is the artist who created the work of art. So hopefully the lawyers will be able to look at that. There was also language in the city's proposed document that refers to, the word alteration was used. So I feel that that's unnecessary. If the gift is being made to the city of Salem through the Salem Public Art Commission, which is entrusted with stewarding the collection and managing the any needed repairs or conservation of works in the collection, then why would we have a donation form that says we can alter the work if we want or need to, and then if you don't like it, you have the right to take your name off the work? That just seems to be at odds with each other. And I was thinking about it earlier this morning, and to me that would be similar to, if someone donated a rare book to the library, and then the library decided, well, we don't have enough room on the shelves, we're going to cut the book in half, and if you don't like it, we can say that you were never the author of the work. It just, anyway, I think I think maybe just a conversation with the lawyer will help get through this, and then having a good model from a professionally accredited museum in our community that actually does what I think we're looking for may give them, some rest. My experience with government attorneys is that they are risk averse. They don't want to create a situation where the city or, the government and governmental entity is going to be exposed to some, lawsuit down the road. Betty's piece is a 3-part piece of a single work of art, and we're accepting it as such. We're not going to carve it up, one in the mayor's office, something else somewhere else, and part of it left in the library, because our purpose is to steward the collection for the public.
Right. I feel like a lot of the changes that they made are, they actually go against what it is we're tasked with doing, which is proper management of the collection. So to me, that is confusing. And to include works like destroy, the city has the absolute right to destroy the artwork. No, I don't agree with that. And I don't think we should be putting those kinds of words in there, because ethically and under generally and best practices of collections management, you would not ever destroy an artwork intentionally. And it's different when it's some sort of, natural act or disaster situation, of course. But to even put that in there is semi-horrifying to see that in writing.
And the draft agreement out to everybody. I did not include that in my email.
I think you just sent it to a couple.
I sent it to Eileen and to Rachel.
Okay, yeah, we needed to be very clear that that's not the final language by any means.
Right,
No,
but I'm just saying, like, these words are red flags to me. They are also all in red, fittingly in here. And then also asking an artist to waive rights to attribution, that is troubling. And also just to disregard entirely the Visual Artists' Rights Act, because, that is a legal precedent. And I don't know. I can understand kind of perhaps where the impetus for this is coming from. But I think there's a way to tone it down and address specifically the issues that are of concern. And if it's a matter of, reciting a work, for instance, the piece, the Lillian Pitt sculpture that, was installed in that particular place, maybe 10 years from now, the city desires to move it to another location. We want to be able to do that without involving the artist. Ideally, you might consult the artist and talk with them about that. But with a painting, that's different. And in this case, with the Betty Leduc, it is a 3-panel piece. So I don't see any reason that we would even ever consider separating those, because it's a conceived whole piece. But yeah, So anyhow, I just think that if we can better understand what it is their concerns are, maybe the language can be finessed in such a way that it addresses some of those without completely negating the rights of the artists.
Sure. Well, as Chris mentioned, our attorney has expressed interest in sitting down to meet. And I think that's what's needed is just having that one-on-one discussion without me being a middle person and maybe misconstruing. So, and he's willing to do that. I just need some potential times and I can get that scheduled and we'll work through those concerns.
Sounds good.
Okay.
The other thing on the upside for the Betty Leduc donation, I think it is another opportunity for us to, do an interview with Betty, do an interview about, what led to SPAC securing this gift of a valuable work for the new library. She's a very popular artist, and I actually don't know what a work of this might be valued at, but I think that would be also good for us to know. Jonathan may be able to help us a little bit. I don't know, but I see it as another wonderful opportunity.
Mhm.
And I get the feeling that Betty may have more work that she might consider donating down the road.
Mm.
I just get that vibe.
She did say that, Chris, actually. That was
Okay.
one of the things that she mentioned earlier, that she was offering several different pieces. We looked at some of them, but they weren't quite what we were looking for. And when she offered this one, we all said yes, almost right away.
Mhm.
So, but she has looked for other opportunities to donate. And so Paula, for instance, is going to look to maybe asking for a piece for Western Oregon.
Excellent.
So
I know
like
she
that.
has a lot of work.
Yeah, she does.
Yep. Okay, well, let's go on to the other work in progress that we have, and let's start with the Echo Earth globe. It's funny, I was coming back from the beach yesterday, and I came down the ramp where the light is at the carousel, looked over to the new amphitheater that is shaping up, and it just made me think that whole area is really going to be kind of a go-to space once the construction's complete and everything starts to open up. So Eileen was able to work with Mary Heintzman to kind of get into the first thing on our kind of work plan for the Echo Earth Ball, and that was to look at the records that the Echo Earth folks had from their nonprofit about all of the people who were involved, all the donors, some of the major underwriters. And so now we have a large amount of information about how that whole thing came together. And boy, hundreds of people were involved. It's unbelievably impressive. I didn't appreciate it at the time. What else was I going to say? I know you did something else, Heather, and I'm just blanking out right now.
Well, before we got that info, I ran down and tried to get pictures of the plaques all over the piece. So I did that, but that's not going to help, compared to everything that you got from Mary. And I noticed that there's a few, I think at least 3 of those plaques are missing as well, unfortunately. So I'm so glad that we were able to get that additional information.
I know what I was going to say. And then Heather talked with Kimberly Fitzgerald in the preservation arena about my question about trying to list the Echo Earth globe as a city landmark. And so Kimberly there's a form that SHPO uses. You can either put you can ask for comment about whether your site could be listed as in the National Register of Historic Places, or whether it can get into an online inventory of historic sites in Oregon. which I checked out. There's a lot of information there, but we've got the paperwork. And I think that as a result of all the legwork that Eileen did with Mary, like I could fill the form, I could draft a response to the form, and we could at least get that moving. I don't know if it would be, I don't know what the process is for designating something a city of Salem landmark. It's a little bit of a different process, but the good news is we've got a lot of information about how this thing came together. We've got our conservators report, and I think we're, in my mind, there's been good progress since the last couple of meetings. So I feel I'm very appreciative of all the legwork that's happened. I guess the big question is kind of like, what's the real first step? Most of the major funders now have only one deadline a year. Oregon Community Foundation has 2. A lot of people don't fund stuff like this in general. The people who fund art might not necessarily fund a community art project on a piece of industrial historical stuff.
And then the other possibility is that we won't fund a redo. That's also a problem. They wanted to be funding something that's from the beginning.
Well, I think this is a conservation project.
Yeah, I know.
This to me is more about historic preservation than it is about art, because
Okay.
it is a restoration. The good news is there are people for whom that is a funding priority. And so we need to keep reinforcing why this is important for Salem. It involved multiple communities, all ages. It's in a park. It's COVID learning outdoors. It's easily accessible. You can speak any language and know what the globe is all about. There's a story here. I think we have to keep chipping away. The problem is, it's the earth ball going to keep chipping away on its own front as we get this thing going.
I also think that this is an absolutely perfect match for Wendy Brokaw.
Yep.
Because again, we will lose the story of this and how it all came together. Mary still remembers a lot, but even now she's forgetting some of the stuff. And a couple of the people on the committee that worked with her have passed away.
Yeah.
And so if we were able to, in fact, I was going to talk to Wendy about it, so that Mary is on video talking about it. And that will be part of what we can use going forward to make people realize just how much of a community effort this was.
I wonder how much, and I can do this search myself, but I remember a big sort of media, blast at the time of the dedication, but we might want to gather up some of that, some of those links. I'm just curious, in those days, the Statesman had someone like Ron Cowan who covered things, really deeply. And we just, I might talk to Ron about that and see what he remembers and what he has. I found when I was working on the OASF website and looking back at those mayor's annuals, that even the Statesman did not have a good way. They didn't even have their own photo collection archived well. So there's no record of some of that stuff, literally.
Well, Mary may have photographs too, because she is a photographer as well.
Yep.
And so she was documenting the process as it went along, the part that she was involved in. Mm-hmm. She didn't come on board though until maybe about the 3rd year, 2.5 years into the project.
Oh, wow.
So, because there was all the work that they had to do to get it the fundraising in place and also the engineering structural. All of that had to be done ahead of time before they even turned to the art side.
So I guess the question is, you know, what is next? I mean, I can look at, you know, I'm pretty familiar with most of the major funders. You know, we'd need to write a case, you know, we'd really need to kind of just put together a brief on this. And I mean, I'll say this quite frankly, if it was just fundraising to get the work done, it would be one thing. But what, a third of the proposed cost is now city charges? You know, that is a bit of a non-starter with some funders, you know. So we'd need to have some conversations, but I will at least commit to doing a draft of the historic form based on the information from Mary. And then at least we've got a certain amount of information that's collected and can get fed into the preservation channels.
And
then,
I put together a timeline, Chris, too, of what, from Mary's notes of what, but she hasn't yet gotten back to me on that one.
okay,
So I was kind of holding off on it because there may be some changes. But one of the things that I was not able to verify was that in the notes it said that the governor declared the date of the dedication Eco Earth Day for the state. And I wasn't able to verify that independently. So when you're doing your research, if you see anything like that, that's one little piece that I'd like to add, because that gives it more of a heft.
right. That would have been a proclamation.
Yeah.
And I think
I don't
Kitzhaber did it.
Yeah.
I can figure that out.
I think it was Kulangoski.
Oh, okay, great. More up his alley.
Yeah.
Best pro-arts governor in the history of the state.
Really?
Oh, definitely. He got a national award.
Wow.
I nominated him. Okay. All right. Council doors. Are they still at City Hall?
They're still on the first floor at City Hall, the old evidence room where the police were. There have been continued talks about renovating that space, but it sounds more and more, and there's not been a final decision yet, but it sounds more and more like they're going to look to just do a portion of that space. So I can confirm yet, but I'm hoping that that might give us a bit more time just to leave those in place where they're at. So I will check with facilities on that, but I poured through, I think maybe I let Chris or Eileen know. I've gone through everything that I have in hard copy in the office. And I found one old document back from the opening of the Civic Center showing that the bronze panels, it was clearly stated, were donated to the city, and they are in the council chambers doors, or located on the council chambers doors. So for what that helped, I'm not sure, but that's, of everything that we had, that's all I found so far. I had thought maybe I would reach back out to SHPO and get clarity. In their letter, they had suggested that the doors themselves should be reinstalled somewhere close by. I don't know how that's going to happen. They're so huge, they're so heavy. And I was informed that it's probably best to go through Kimberly, as that process can be tricky, working with SHPO. So I've not yet reached back out. You had mentioned maybe connecting with staff at the Heritage Museum. So I thought maybe we'd see if we can find anything else before we reach back out.
Rachel did confirm that the papers for the Sedicase architects are archived, and they were the architects of the Civic Center. Their materials are archived at Willamette Heritage. I did look at the Willamette Heritage website. They're opening slowly. They're they've set up kind of a new fee structure for research assistants. I haven't had time to reach out to their curator directly, but I will do that. And I'm hopeful that we'll find something out, going through that archive. Jerry Frank, who is still alive, he is one of the people involved with the Civic Center development, who is still alive and in Salem, and he might make an interesting interview, just in terms of reaching out to him and figuring out what he remembers about that donation, if anything. But I think the first step is to look at those archives, figure out, what else we can find out. I'm also interested in figuring out who is preparing the National Register nomination of the Civic Center for the National Register of Historic Places, because those folks they're expert researchers, and whoever that person is may know something that we don't know.
Okay. Who at SHPO?
No, usually SHPO, they may prepare them themselves, but very often it's someone who's contracted to do the work.
Okay.
It's kind of a specialty skill. And some people are volunteers, but there are professionals. In fact, ARG, who did the conservation analysis for the Echo Earth Ball, they will do this kind of work as well. But it could be someone in the community. I just don't know. I'm just curious. And I did check some of the other websites, the Docomo, some of the people who track mid-century work. There's a great deal of information about the Civic Center, almost nothing about the Wayne Taysom involvement. So anyway, I think we've got, there's not a rush. The doors are secure. We can probably get into Willamette Heritage when will let us in. It might cost $50. It's not like a huge amount. Any questions about the doors? Let's move on to the murals, and I'll just let you give an update. It sounds like we're not making fast progress. That's fine. That's fine with me. It's not like we are being, besieged with requests.
We have had, so the Rivers has continued to express interest, and they've, the gal, I think her name is Christy Riddle, has reached out. I've spoken with her. She's reached out to Urban Development. I think she reached out to the Oregon Artist Series looking for funding opportunities.
Yeah.
And she did speak with Cherie about, in Urban Development, about potential opportunities there. There's a capital improvement grant program that's eligible under certain urban renewal areas, but they typically do not fund murals, is what I understand. There could be an exception if it got approved through the Urban Renewal Agency. But she had a conversation with Ms. Riddle, and we don't have a design, but apparently she shared that their latest concept would reference the local Native American tribes, and that she had received some price quotes from someone that were around $100,000 for the painting. So that's as much as I've heard from there. We've also received interest just this last week from a teacher at the Little Friends Montessori, which apparently is in the First Presbyterian down there by the Y. She has expressed an interest in a mural and has received approval from the church at this point. So she was wondering about the process. So I've not yet connected with her. I was given a phone is all, so I texted her some information, and I've not yet heard back. But there has been one additional interest raised. But yeah, I've not yet had a chance to reach back up to Portland. I think our next step was to speak with Portland, the Street Art Alliance, and staff from City of Portland on their permit process. And we would need to loop our attorney and folks from planning into that discussion as well, because anything that we do on mural changes is going to impact planning staff and that sign code. So we just haven't got there yet.
And for Rachel and Spencer, reaching up to Portland is more for, they have dealt with this issue themselves. And this Title IV program that they are using allows community murals to be made. They are usually limited to 2 to 3 years, I think is what it was. And the Street Art Alliance is usually the venue because they have access to a list of artists that they use, and they have established certain guidelines for murals in the community. And so that list of artists are a lot of local artists plus a few artists beyond the Portland area. Anyway, so that would be, I was hoping that if we were able to communicate with them, we may see a way forward to doing a bifurcated path to this mural, putting murals into Salem, because the fact that we have to actually accept it into the collection each time a mural comes up is very problematic.
All right, so it sounds like we've got kind of a work in progress here. Just one comment based on your comments, Heather. If the rivers are doing something that might be reflective of the Native American tribes in this area, I would hope that they are in conversation with the tribes and or using a Native American artist for their work. That's a pretty sensitive area to be involved in. I just hope that they're aware of some of those subtleties.
Thank you for stating that. She had called a while back and I never did connect with her, but I imagine there'll be continued conversations. So, yeah.
Let's move on to a spam risk. We've had a request for a consideration of a potential donation came into the city, and for work or works by an artist named Doug Dawson. So let's open up that. Do you want to say any more about that, Heather? Or jump in?
Yeah, no, that was, I'll try to pull it up on the screen here. That was an email that was forwarded that came in through City Council. And so we're just bringing it to the group today. Everything was sent out to you guys that I received. Okay, and hopefully you can see this. Sideways.
Yeah. My sense is that right now the city is not necessarily in a position to accept any donations given our space issues. And I'm not sure that this gentleman would meet the criteria of kind of prominence and regional acclaim that I would hope that we would be looking at as we look to fill any gaps in our collection. So this would be a donation that I would decline. But let's hear from others.
Doug, full disclosure, Doug Dawson was a student of mine for many years, and I know Cheryl too, but I didn't know that this was being proposed. And I was wondering if there isn't some way that they could donate it directly. One of the organizations they mentioned was the police facility. And is it possible that it could be donated directly to them rather than going through SPAC?
That would be a question for the police.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know if it was even possible to do it that way.
Well, that's kind of what we did for the Master Lee that was donated to the city and not accepted into the collection.
Right. Right. Well, the Dawsons have a lot of connection to both the police, and also Doug was the district attorney for Polk County. He also worked in Marion County in the DA's office as well. So that was one thought I had, and the other thought was perhaps also to approach the Salem Library collection, the foundation collection.
I think this email came in through a couple different channels, so I don't know who all may have received it, but I'd be happy to forward on to Kate, and I could forward on to staff at police if that's what's suggested today, and see if there's interest from those groups.
I think it would also be just important, just so that this type of thing doesn't gets resolved, if we could take action to either accept a gift or decline this offer of a gift to the City of Salem Public Art Collection. Would people feel comfortable doing that today?
Yes, I probably will be abstaining.
So
Then we don't have enough people to have a vote.
Right.
So, Spencer, Rachel, any opinion on this potential donation?
I think, as you said, right now, we have the bulk of our collection is in storage in Portland, and we're trying to determine what will come out and go into the library. I don't think we're in a position to make any decisions, or let me rephrase that. I don't think we should be taking in new artwork right now.
I agree.
I also think that if we were assembling a wish list of people who were prominent artists in this community, this individual's name would not probably be on that list. All right, it sounds like if someone wanted to make a motion to decline this, we can't take action on this today. Let's put it that way. So let's just, I guess we'll have to leave it pending until we have a larger group of members to take it up. But Heather, you could proceed on contacting the other entities to see if there is interest in a gift.
Sounds good.
All right, commissioners' comments. I have just one, and that is that I get the sense that the Salem Police Department has fully embraced the Blessing Hancock sculpture. I see them posting on social media periodically, and I think it's great. I noted that International Sculpture Day is later this month. I can look up the date, but it seemed like a good opportunity to reach out to Angie over at the police department, and maybe the police could do a shout out about the sculpture on International Sculpture Day. I just get the feeling that they're happy. I'm still interested in getting over and seeing the interior of the police station and how their display of artifacts looks, but I have not even been over there on foot to peek around. But what about other comments from folks? Actually, one other from me. Willamette installed the large Lee Kelly piece that was donated to them by SAFE, and it is outside what used to be the art building. It may still be the art building along
State Street?
State Street.
They-
Yeah, I've only seen it in pictures, but it looks good, very visible to the public. So that's a nice addition to the community as well.
If you let me know what day International Sculpture Day is, we could share through the main city channels as well.
Perfect.
Okay.
Perfect. And actually, did everybody see the article that Travel Salem did on the murals? They did a blog post. That was another nice thing. Maybe we could get Travel Salem to do something about International Sculpture Day.
Nicole in urban development that I work with, she works very closely with them. So and we share some of their information, I know, so that might be an option.
Yeah. I mean, the weather's getting nice, weather is better. People are outside more. And then when that end of Riverfront Park is finished, I think it's just going to be great. Even better. Okay. I'm not hearing any more comments.
I just
Anything else?
remembered something, Chris, moving back to the Eco Earth for a second. The listing that Mary gave of all the past donors, one of the things that she had said in the email was that perhaps you could go through it and figure out from that list who would be likely a grant donor as opposed to just a personal donor.
I could take a look. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. I was impressed at the way they divvied up sponsorship opportunities to get individual gifts at multiple levels. Like you could sponsor an animal, you could sponsor a continent, you could sponsor a country. Like one of my neighbors, the McDowell family, they did Scotland, and you get a city. I mean, it was very, someone put a lot of thought into it. I can definitely eyeball it. Some folks are, have passed on, but there are plenty of people in the community who are still around. Not at large amounts of money, regrettably. So, okay. Well, anything else for the good of the order? Not hearing any. All right, well, carry on, everybody. Enjoy the weather. It's just fabulous.
Yeah.
Probably good to start conserving water. All right, anything else, Heather?
I'm going to send out our Salem information, and then just if you could give me times that you'd like to meet with our attorney, I'll get that set. He was open this afternoon even, I'm not sure. So we'll try to get that done soon.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Have a
Thank
good
you very
day.
much.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.